Good evening. Let's try that again. Good evening. That's better. I know you're just full of energy, and this evening is just going to be a real special event and presentation. I am Cheryl Sunday. I'm one of the associate ministers here at Unity Church, and we welcome you here this evening. For those of you who may be here for the first time, we do have Welcome to Unity packets that give you some information about this ministry that the ushers can give to you as you leave this evening. We extend a warm welcome to you, and tonight's program at Unity's Church of Christianity is an ongoing effort to reach out and give to the community what we feel we can offer to you in great and wonderful ways. Our speaker tonight is Bernard Hale Zick, and he knows why he's here on earth. His job is to gather wisdom and to use it to help other people to live out their dreams. It's wonderful when we know our purpose, is it not? Mr. Zick started with an MBA from Northwestern University and was a portfolio manager on Wall Street. As his business and investment success got notoriety, he began to write, consult, and to speak. For the last 8 years, Bernard has been helping business owners and corporate leaders discover and identify what makes them so unique, so that they can convey their message in marketing and in sales. But for all of his life, he has been a Unity student and working with Unity principles. This made him search for answers. Barney began to notice that success in business not always meets happiness, that a business failure did not predict whether a person was happy or not. Thus, he became a student of how to win the inner game, and that's what he's going to be speaking on this evening, the game that needs to be won first if you are to have success in your business or in your personal life. And Barney will tell you he learned most of all his personal lessons the hard way. He is an international speaker with over 1,700 presentations from London to Los Angeles. But lucky for us, he lives close by in Kingwood, Texas. Here tonight to present Winning the Inner Game, will you please welcome a man, a great, magnificent mountain of a man with the heart of a teddy bear. Please welcome Bernard Hale Zick.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you. It's good to be here. It's good to be here. I'm going to share some concepts with you. When Howard asked me to speak, I usually am talking on business subject. This is a little different for me, but I've had a lot of thoughts on this process. And I'm not going to tell you, I think, anything new. Maybe I'm going to remind you of some things that you hadn't been thinking about before. But when I'm working with people in business, as I've done for quite a few years, and people in investment and finance, I was always wondering why, when I gave them the best of ideas that I had, when I gave them the best concepts I could possibly think of, and I would see some people make the cover of Money magazine because of tremendous success using the ideas, and somebody else having the very same ideas and not getting anywhere. I figured it had to be something besides the theoretical body of knowledge that was making the difference. And then when I would find some people that were in terrible circumstances and still didn't seem to be bothered by it. I mean, they were doing extremely well in their life. And pretty soon, I finally got to that point where I realized that maybe those sorts of things, those outside sort of things, wasn't where it's at. So I started asking myself some questions. I started asking, where does the success come from? And I started looking at asking different questions of the people that I work with, the people that I do business with. And I have some questions to ask you that has to do with winning that inner game. The concept of winning the inner game is more a matter of how comfortable you are with yourself, I guess, more than anything else. So let's ask some questions. The first question would be, is there somebody first, let's talk about the embarrassment. Is there some embarrassment that you have? Now, if you're taking notes, you can write it down in small print so nobody can see it, but is there some embarrassment that you had that's kind of sticking with you? Something that happened to you that brings you discomfort even to think of it today? Because sometimes people will tell me their success comes from something terrible happened to them long ago in the past. I remember a gentleman I met one time. We were doing a 5-day educational event, and it was kind of a gestalt sort of thing that they were doing, and we were going back and remembering, and this guy remembered a time that he was so embarrassed. He was so embarrassed. He had a violin, but he really didn't know how to play it well, and his school had a recital, and he got up in front and made a fool of himself. And ever since then, that embarrassment kept him from even talking to people. I mean, I didn't even know he was there at the event until about the fourth day when I went around and I made everybody talk. We had about 200 and some people there, but we broke down to small groups, and I had one of the small groups, which I thought was fascinating because when I was a child, I had the exact same thing happen. I was supposed to learn how to play the piano, but, you know, Mom didn't want to buy a piano right away, and we had cardboard keys, is what she gave me to practice on, and guys that like to play football don't like to practice piano anyway. And I'd been out for about 10 days, and I showed up, and I was wearing terrible clothes. My shirt was too small and didn't come all the way down, and I've been pretty good size all my life, and had some old blue jeans on, and they were having a performance that day, and everybody who was taking piano lessons had to be in the performance. I went, no, 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 you know. But fourth graders don't have very much to say. I guess it's fourth or fifth grade, don't have much to say about those things. And all the kids, all dressed in their suits, they all got up and played, and I made it a fool. I actually froze on the keys. I mean, literally had to lift me up and carry me away from the piano because my fingers were in that position. And afterwards, I thought, someday I'm going to be in front of a group, and I'm going to have a good time, and they're going to enjoy themselves, and that's the reason I became a speaker. So the exact same sort of event for one person went one way, and for another person went another way. Is there something that is needed for your success? Something. Otherwise, do you need an investor to back you? Do you need, is it you're lacking education, or what is it that one thing? Think about that. Maybe we can find some answers for that. And then what one person, more than anyone else, is there some person that's keeping you from having the success that you'd like to have? Well, I'm going to give you 7 concepts here, 7 attitudes, 7 positions that maybe you're holding that could affect your success. And we'll examine them and see if you want to change your viewpoint here for the future. First, attitude is, your attitude dictates your day. Your attitude dictates your day. And you know, it's kind of funny. I don't know why, for a long time, I was waiting to have a happy life. And all of a sudden, I realized, I think I read a book, and I can't remember who it was by, but the guy said, be happy for the rest of your life. If I can get 5 minutes put together, I think I've done a good job, and I'll go for the other 5. And one time I started to realize that people tend to be dictating their life not in big chunks, but in very, very small chunks. I had a friend, and he went to law school, and all of a sudden he became extremely pessimistic, very negative. And so I realized you can change your attitude. And I didn't feel bad about him becoming negative. I mean, you stop and think. Think about being lawyers. I mean, I came from a small town. We only had one lawyer there. He was a criminal lawyer. We couldn't prove it, but we were pretty certain. But a lawyer has to find everything that's wrong. Isn't that true? So you get used to looking for what's wrong. In fact, he was the, you've heard the perfectionist, the idea of being a perfectionist? Well, actually, a perfectionist is the opposite because they're always looking for what is wrong. And that's the way he was. And some people just never seem to change, no matter what the evidence is, whatever happens, whatever they get themselves involved with. A friend of mine had a dog, and he got this dog specifically because he had a pessimist as a friend, and he wanted to show this dog off because he figured this dog would surely, you know, get an aha out of the pessimist. It's a hunting dog, and it had a special ability. It could run so fast that its feet never even touched the water, just like Snoopy on the top of the grass. And so they went out hunting, and the dog ran out. Of course, you have to go in a big circle when you run that fast. Grabbed the first bird, came in, didn't even get his feet barely wet, right on the end of the paws. Looked over at the pessimist. He didn't say anything. So my friend, the optimist, went on, shot another bird. Dog went out. Third bird, fourth bird, and he finally couldn't stand it anymore. And he turned to the pessimist. He says, "Don't you notice anything different about my dog?" He says, "Yeah, he's afraid to swim." So maybe the lesson in this is that if you're, the secret is not trying to change the pessimists around you, but maybe working on your own inner attitude. Your own inner attitude, which you can change. But your days are a moment-by-moment decision. Your days are a moment-by-moment decision. And if you think positive and keep yourself positive, I mean, I hear all kinds of, some people say, well, my problem is, I'm feeling terrible, I'm feeling negative because I don't have a lot of income. I don't have a lot of income. My income's not there. I'm not meeting my needs. Well, you know, I've been self-unemployed most all of my life. And after I got my MBA, I worked on Wall Street as a portfolio manager for a while. And since then, I've been on my own. And my income has to go up and down some. I mean, that's the nature of being on your own. And one of the things I discovered, if you get all down, if you get attached to your income, because this is what you're all about, and this is who you are, and this is what makes you successful, and therefore your happiness comes from your income, then you get all depressed when you don't have any income, and you get all depressed, guess what you can't make? Income. Because you're all depressed. You're too depressed to go out and make any income. So this one's not going to work. Now, maybe your happiness, when you're considering what your problem is, has to do with what you own. Well, you can't own enough. Stop and think. Howard Hughes, I think, thought his happiness was what he owned. And he got to where he was trading the Bahamas as a down payment on Brazil or something like that, as I recall, at the time he died. I mean, he never really got all that far with that deal, but he never was happy, was he? I've discovered in life, and I'm pleased, sir, I hope we're at the end of this. So far in my life, I've had to take very large metaphysical 2x4s to get my attention. And I was tied up in a thing. My dad died when I was 12 months old, and he was extremely successful in business and did 37 acquisitions and mergers and built the biggest, so on and so forth. And I heard all these stories, and I had in mind that's what I had to do for me to be right, to me to be acceptable. And what I owned was a measure of who I was. And if I didn't own a lot, then obviously I wasn't the kind of person that I ought to be. I wasn't fulfilling my life's destiny. And this carried me all the way through getting the MBA and doing all that work and so on and so forth. And many years ago, 20, 30, I can't remember how many now, I was a young kid and I built up a huge net worth, and I lost $6 million in one day. It was not a fun day. It was right around Christmas time, too. I lost $6 million in one day, and I went from having a house in the Bahamas, a house in Laguna Beach, 2 houses in the city, one in the city with a pool, and one in the country with a lake, Cessna 182, Rolls-Royce convertible. I owned a few things, to driving a rusted-out Chevy Cheyenne pickup truck with the fact it had a hole in the floor, thank heaven, because the windows wouldn't go down, and the back window was broken out, and that was the only air coming through, because I was living in Kansas City at the time, was coming off the pavement of I-35 back through that hole. And the good thing about the truck, it was so bad nobody would steal it. You couldn't get the key out of the ignition. And you know, people walk by and look at it, they go, "Ha, left the key in the ignition, fool me." And I was living in a $200 a month apartment. In fact, I was subletting the second bedroom of a $200 a month apartment. And originally starting out sleeping on a mattress that I found in a discarded hide-a-bed. So I had a 2x4 put against my head that said, you know, if you are what you own, then you aren't anymore. I mean, you just dissolved, you know. And it was quite a lesson. It was quite a lesson. And I would say it probably took me about 6, 7 years to get that lesson to sink in. I held one of the largest pity parties ever held in the Midwest, and nobody came. It's just amazing, you know. You say we're all coming around to feel sorry for me, and I'd like you to show at 7:30. It's just amazing what a small turnout that you have. So I discovered that. I mean, you know, nobody wants to hear about your problems, and they want to tell you about theirs. Actually, your days dictate your life. Your days dictate your life. I mean, you're spending your days waiting for somebody or something, you know. I mean, if you're waiting for somebody to love, I mean, what about that lady that waited so long for her ship to come in that her pier collapsed? I mean, you never, you never know. You never know. That guy dropped his anchor, so you never know. You never know. If you hinge your happiness on something external, then you're never going to have a happy life, because every day will be miserable. And if you can't put together a good day, you can't put together a good, happy life. And it's really the moment-by-moment decisions that you make that make that difference. That decision on what kind of attitude you have. Like when I turned on all this complicated equipment and found out that the mouse that's supposed to move this forward is no longer working. So, you know, I thought, wow, what a great opportunity to play with a computer. So, because these sort of things happen, don't they? And if you set your attitude on what's going on around you and you're looking for external happiness, then you're going to be fighting that constantly. Since your days, day by day, dictates the happiness in your life. So many people are waiting for something. You know, they're waiting until they're single, or waiting until the kids are grown, or wait till they get a divorce, or they're waiting for something, and then their life is going to be happy. What if someday never gets here? What are you going to do? Now, it's interesting, there was a young lady that I remember that wrote a letter. She'd obviously in haste had made a decision about her future. She wrote a letter to this guy, and she said, "Dear David, I'm so sorry I threw your engagement ring in your face and laughed. You're actually a quite handsome man, and you're very intelligent, and you're fun to be around, and you're great company, and I really do want to apologize, because as much as you doted over me, I did not treat you very well, and I really beg your forgiveness, and I hope you take me back, and I love you dearly and deeply." You know, signed Elizabeth. And P.S., congratulations on winning the lottery. So, you know, no matter how we live our life, things will go wrong. things will go wrong. I had a mentor, and I enjoyed the spiritual mentor. I enjoyed the relationship. His name was Jack Boland. He had a church up in Warren, Michigan. And I spoke up there a couple of times, and whenever Jack was around here someplace, I'd go wherever he was and talk to him. And I listened to all of his tapes. I got all his sermons for Wednesday and Sunday for years. That's when I was traveling. That's what I listened to. Learned a lot of great stuff. But he had an expression that I just dearly loved. He says, life comes and pounds on your hood. Isn't that true? I mean, that's so vivid. I can just imagine peeking out the door. You're hearing this thumping sound. You know, life comes and pounds on your hood. You know, even good people have bad things happen to them. And so often I think, and not so much nowadays because there's been so many changes in the economy and people have seen good people have bad times. But I think maybe when I was growing up, it was almost assumed that if you were having bad times, you deserved it for some reason or other. Well, maybe you do from another point of view. Maybe the bad times is a good chance for you to learn a lesson. But that's the only positive I can see in it. I mean, because bad things just tend to happen. No matter what you do and how you position yourself, things will go wrong. There was a lady that Jack told me about, and Jack had this, and I'll see if I can say the word right, Afrocatastaphus. Anybody ever hear Jack talk about that? That's a made-up word, by the way, so you can say it wrong. It's okay. Afrocatastaphus. And he said, anytime anything goes wrong, that's the word you say, and it means something wonderful must be about to happen. And the concept went like this. This young lady was driving down the road. She was going to meet her girlfriends, and she had two girlfriends, and they all were dressed up very fancy. And they're going out to meet Mr. Right. Hopefully a different Mr. Right for each girlfriend. And she ran off, she had a flat tire, and she had to run off the side of the road. There were, you know, people make all those illegal U-turns in the muddy part of the road there. And she gets out, and here she is in her beautiful heels and hose, and looks down there, and there's the flat tire and the mud. She says, Afrocatastaphus, something wonderful must be about to happen. And just as she stood there like that, a guy slams on his brakes in a big brand new Chevy Cheyenne pickup truck, pulls in, gets out, tall, you know, 6'2", not that tall, tall enough, 6'2", dark hair, gets out and says, can I help you? And 2 months later, they were married. True story. True story. Now, I've told that story once before to people, and they say, wait a minute, this is what they call in logic a faulty cause-effect relationship. You know? Just because she said the word doesn't mean that everything worked out great because of that. Now, stop and think. Now, when I talked about pulling off the side of the road and having this miserable muck and mire, and you got your heels and hose on, I saw the expression on some of your faces. I could tell, I mean, you know, and if you had that expression on your face when that guy came by, you're going, you know, he'd go, I'll call AAA, but I'm not pulling over and running my evening. So maybe there's something to this. When things go wrong, you got to find out what in it is right. What lesson is there for you to learn? You go up to a parking lot, and it says pull up to the line, and you stop before the line because there's 3 cars in front of you. And just as you get out of the car, the 3 cars pull off. Parking lot attendant comes out of the little room there from having parked another car and come up the elevator, and he comes over and he says, can't you read? You parked your stupid car. You know, you're blocking traffic. He starts yelling at you. He starts yelling at you. And then if you buy into it, you say, well, if you could read, you wouldn't be parking cars. You know, and then you're at it, you know. And things will go wrong. Things will go wrong. But what you can't do, if those things involve other people, you can't let them dictate your thinking. Because stop and think, what you just did in that situation, if you were to do that, is that you let that parking lot attendant dictate whether you were going to be in a good mood or not. See, I figure God gave me the power to dictate an awful lot of my life, including my mood moment to moment. And I just let he had a bad day, you know, his dog bit one leg and his kid bit the other leg, and he had a bad day, and he decided that he was going to go out and spread it around, you know, and thought I'd be one of the spreadees, and he's wrong, you know. I mean, like, have you ever pulled up to a stoplight? And then, of course, it would never happen here in Houston. You pull up to a stoplight, and the light changes green, and you were thinking, and somebody behind you honks, you know, and maybe they give you the Bronx taxi cab driver's salute or something like that, you know. And you don't have to make that change your reality. I mean, what I do is I just push it up into park, and I pop right out of the car, and I go back, and I say, you know, I'm so glad you honked at me. I mean, I was sitting there, and I wasn't paying any attention whatsoever, and the light changed, and there it is changing again. And, you know, I was thinking about Grandma's chicken. Now, Grandma has had the best chicken, and the grease never seemed to bother me. But nowadays, I can't even hardly eat chicken anymore. And the light, as it's changing now, it happened again. And I really appreciate you catching me in this fog. Don't let them dictate your mood. Don't let them dictate your mood. Okay? You can decide that. I had a fun experience here not too long ago. I went to the doctor just to get a quick little checkup, and had a couple little symptoms. And he said, odds are you have colon cancer. I said, oh, really? And this was the start of a very interesting day. They literally marched me down the hall to the colon cancer surgeon, who happened to be in the same building. And he said, usually I'd send you in for a few more checkups, but this is what you need to do, because I'll tell you, that's what you're going to have to do. And, talking about so many inches of tailpipe and so on and so forth coming out and all this kind of stuff. And, boy, you talk about a change in your life. I mean, this is, I just go down for a checkup. And 7 days later, I was in the hospital. And waking up, because they forgot to switch the right pain medication or something like that. And I woke up feeling like I had a silver brick inside of me. And somebody told me that's the memory, a 10-inch silver brick. That's the memory of the two slices, which were 10 inches apart. Interesting, isn't it? And the pain was a new thing. But that was nothing. The doctors told me I had a year to live. Oh, what an exciting thing. I have a year to live. You talk about, I'm a fairly young guy. I'm raising 4 kids. We pass them back and forth. I got 1 living with me and 3 living with her, and we pass them back and forth. And probably next year I'll have 2 living with me. We'll pass them back and forth. We'll see. Anyway, and had 1 year to live. Wow, you have no idea. I mean, how that, first place, even just getting prepared for an operation like that. You're by yourself in your house and you're getting prepared for that. I mean, it really is a real mind changer. And I had a tremendous metamorphosis in my thinking. Now, before you get feeling too bad, later on he says, I didn't really mean a year. What I really meant was, 3 months later, he finally got clear. 3 months I went around thinking it's a year to go. He was really talking about when you come in a year, don't be surprised if things are really terrible. That's where he was starting from. Now, would I wish that on you? Almost. Almost. Boy, do you get your priorities in order. Boy, do you ever get your priorities in order. You think about who your friends are and who you should be spending some time with and such as that. But I walked out of it. I walked out of it thinking I learned some really great things. I learned some great things. And we talk about a wake-up. First place, I remember saying I was dying to lose weight. I didn't mean it, sir. So far, I've lost 72 pounds. Coming along just fine, thank you. I didn't particularly want to go back to see any more surgeons, so I've looked up every single alternative health person there is in the world, all the way from London to wherever, and you would not believe all the fun things that I've been doing, with energy and this and that and so on and so forth, but being involved in Unity all my life, it wasn't that hard to find the right people and get directed. And Pam and David, who are sitting right here, I mean, some beautiful things happened out of it. They came to the hospital and helped nurture me through this and called me regularly to find out how I was doing. And I got a clean bill of health 2 weeks ago. Thank you. Thank you. Now, what I found out, and just to share it with you so you don't have to go through this, save you time, it's physical, okay? It's mental, and it's spiritual. And I'm not through. I mean, this is going to be the path I'll be on for the rest of my life. And the physical has to do with the diet. I mean, I've always felt as healthy as a horse, and I probably ate like one. Everything I found went in my mouth. And not the case anymore. And it's mental, and a lot of it has to do with your attitude, positive or negative. And it sure makes a difference. And all this thing that you hear about, like being involved in the meditation that you so lovingly did here earlier, and all that, all helps build this nice white light around you that keeps everything going in the right direction. But it's also spiritual. Because I think that the other path, the chemotherapy path and everything that they wanted me to do, where are you putting all your power? Putting it out there in man. And given the choice, I mean, I don't want 110 if I can get 210, I want to plug into that higher power source. And like I said, I wouldn't wish it on you, but even if you live the right life, things will go wrong. The name of the game is to say, what lessons should I learn out of this? And I'll give you one more, and then I'll get off these stories. It was an interesting period of time. I spent a 3 or 3.5 year period of time. My mom died, my dad died. I went through a divorce, got cancer. Big 2x4, big 2x4. Wake up, it's kind of like the life said, I'm going to pull out all your life supports and see if you can make it on your own. Okay, no longer the identity of the son or of the spouse and so on and so forth. You got to find out who you are of yourself. And when my mom died, oh, it was tough. It's tough. In fact, it's hard to even think of it now because it really hit me deep. There was a lot of unresolved issues that I never brought up, which I have since. Another friend, Bill Curley, helped me through that process of identifying some of these things that made me think things through. And now I've worked my way through that, and I'm very comfortable with what I'm thinking. But I was, but you get this self-pity thing. So, why? She was so young. To me, so young at 73. She was so young, but to me, she was so young. Why? But if you ask that question, not feeling sorry for yourself, but looking for the reason, there's a reason in there. My mom died with 2 file folders this thick, full of places she wanted to go. She was the original someday I'm gonna do it person. Someday when because she was sure that her husband would predecease her, and she had to be there for him, and they were not real happy together, but she had to be there for him, because he got ill every once in a while and so on and so forth. And someday when they told her she had 6 months probably, I came to her and I said, Mom, let me take you to Ireland. You always want to go to Ireland. I'm 1/2 Irish, I'm 1/2 German, I'm 1/2 Texan, 1/2 Cherokee. And that's the reason I'm so big. And Mom's half and half. She's got that redheaded Irish lady. And I said, don't worry about the cost. I got frequent flyer miles. I got timeshares. Let's just go to Ireland. No, I'm going to try the chemotherapy. And they said, well, they told you it wouldn't work. Well, let's go to Ireland. Say, someday I'm going to. Someday I'm going to. Don't you ever say that. Some days now. And that was the lesson. And I started writing down, especially during this 3-month period of time, big 2x4, all the some days I'm gonna. And I figured I better get with it. I better get with it. One of the gonas was going to be to speak here at this church. It's been coming here for a long time, and I don't come here all that regularly because I travel a lot, because I do a lot of presentations, and sometimes you just don't make it back, and also I live on the other side of the earth, and sometimes I go up to Gene's church up there, and such as that. But I happened to catch Howard in a weak moment. I think he mentioned a while back he spoke at the National Speakers Association as the minister. That's the only time I think Howard's been nervous about a presentation in 15, 20 years, right? And Howard had finished. He just done a great job. And I thought, okay, what's the rule of business that one of the ways is with authority and reference and so on and so forth. And Mark Victor Hansen's one of my best friends, and we've been doing things for years. And I said, Mark was in there, of course. And I said, hey, Mark, come here. Come on, let's go up and tell Howard how great he did. And you tell him you ought to bring me into Unity to speak. It's a good enough reference. Got me in. Got me in. But this is something that I wanted to do. I wanted to share my thoughts to see if it could help somebody. I've only done this 4 times, this presentation 4 times. I did it one time about 4 years ago, and I was listening to a tape, and a lady said, when you got to that she was listening to it, I got the tape later on, and she was talking about the service that I did. And she had something that changed her life totally and caused her to get over an illness. And I thought, well, gee, if I can share it and it helps one person, that's worth me spending my time doing it. And I got to do what I wanted to do, because someday I'm going to just start disappearing for me. I'm doing it now. Learn to believe in life. Learn to believe in life. That's what that's all about. That's what I'm telling you. There's a purpose in everything. There's a lesson to be learned and a purpose in everything. And you say, oh, it's just, I have no idea the problems I have. Oh, yes, I hear them. Oh, you don't know. Somewhere in there's a seed of something you can build from, of something that needs to be changed. The universe is telling you that there's something that you need to do. Number three, you are in control of your life. Remember that. You're in control of your life. Take action. Take action. There seems to be, what's this old routine? You've heard it 1,000 times. You go out and you plant pumpkin seeds, and up comes the roses, right? No. You are in control of your life. You need to take action. You decide who makes you in a good mood or a bad mood, right? No. You decide if you're a good mood or a bad mood. Who does it? I mean, this is a lecture my boys have heard of. He did not make you mad. You decided. Have you done that one too? You decided to be mad. But Dad, here we are. It was a decision, Dad, looks like you're mad. Yes, and I'm deciding to get mad. But it is a decision, isn't that true? That's what it's all about. You're in control of your life. And when you look at that, let me give you some laws as I see them. In my life, they've become written down as laws. Number one, you get what you expect. And if you go out expecting terrible things to happen, oh, I'm so forgetful. I'm turning old now, and when you get old, you get to be forgetful. Let me ask you something. Who here has young kids? Let me see the hands. Do young kids forget things? I mean, here's 3 things you do before you can go outside. One thing later, the back scene, I'm done. I mean, and they've actually literally wiped it out of their consciousness, you know. Little kids forget things. I mean, don't give me, this is you programming yourself. You get out of life what you expect. And if you go around expecting to forget things, guess what? You'll be, you know, I forget something, I go, wow, it's totally unlike me. I got a mind like a steel trap, never forget anything. You know, even if I forgot 3 things in a row, I'll still say that. Why? Because that's where I want to go. That's my affirmation. Number 2, you have to expect good things to happen. You get what you expect. You have to expect good things to happen. Number 3, I call it the barrel theory. Now, in the good book, there's somebody that says, oh, I'm thirsty, I'm thirsty. And because it's kind of interesting, somebody says, well, you know, the universe or God or whatever term they use treats everybody equally. Well, the person says, oh, I'm thirsty, I'm thirsty. Where do I get something to drink? And they said, well, go over the hill and there's water. And so they went over the hill with a small cup and got a cup full of water. Second person said, I'm thirsty, I'm thirsty, I'm thirsty. And where can I get water? They said, over the hill. And they went over to the bucket and they got a bucket full of water. Third one, I'm thirsty, I'm thirsty, I'm thirsty. They said, over the hill, there's water. And they took a barrel and they rolled a barrel over the hill and got a barrel full of water. Now, let me ask you this. Were all 3 treated equally? Yeah. They all got what they expected. They all got what they expected. What are you expecting in your life? I doubt if you're going to be disappointed. Number 4, your subconscious plays a very large role in letting things happen for you. Let me tell you how it works. I don't know how many people here have been through med school or whatever, but here's how it works. There's this floor that runs from your eyebrows, it's attached above your ears, see? And there's a dividing wall in here, and there's this little man up there, or a little woman, and every morning when you wake up, it gets out of the back room, comes to the front room and works all the controls. Works the audio, visual, you know, and the cameras and the recording and so on and so forth. And then at night, it takes all that stuff and goes into the back room, and the night person comes out and works the front room, see? And they switch. There's only one cot, and they switch. This is their life. They're happy. And the day guy, you've been to med school, huh? The day guy stores all these tapes and stuff like that. Have you ever been awake in the middle of the night with a great idea, a solution to one of your problems or something like that? That's the night guy doesn't do a lot of thinking, you know, and he finds this note, and the note says there's a problem that needs to be solved, and then all of a sudden he remembers seeing something in the file cabinets back. Then he goes and pounds on the door. Get up, you got to wake up and tell him. That's in file cabinet 22. There's a guy you met last week, and he knows somebody who can get you that thing. That's what that's all about, see? And so what you got to really do, this is how it works, when you go to bed at night, talk to that little guy before he goes to sleep. It's that simple. Talk to that little guy that goes before you go to sleep and tell him what your problems are. Tell him to find that solution for you. It's that simple. This is not rocket science. It's just one little guy about yay big. Okay? And talk to him. Okay? Same ones that roll those raisins around in those ads. Okay? So know that you're in control and make that demand on your subconscious mind. And the 5th rule is that you get what you give. You get what you give. And what it amounts to is, if you don't have enough love in your life, how much love are you willing to give? One of the things I discovered in my life that it's interesting, if you're not getting along with somebody you care about, maybe you have to be the first to hug. You get what you give. I drive my boys nuts. I have 2 boys, 14 and 15. Come here, give me a hug. Dad, we're in front of the high school. Yeah, I know. Come here, give me a hug. And a kiss, too. What's the kiss for? Because I didn't get a quick hug. That's what the kiss is for. Get over here. You know, and there he is with ponytail and baggy pants coming over and gives me a hug and a kiss. He's a good kid. I keep saying that. He's a good kid. But you know, you can't ever let them stop showing you that they love, because they get that break in there and it's hard to get them back again. So I just figure, you know, just keep it, you know, figure when they're 34 and 40 years old, and I'll still be around, and I'll still be getting those hugs. So, number 4, know when you're not in control. You say, wait a minute, it sounds like the opposite of the last rule. Yes, it is the opposite of the last rule. I don't know what it is. It's kind of funny the way we do things in life. It's like you're driving down the road and you're going, oh, this is so terrible. I keep running in the ditch and I keep hitting trees and I keep having all these problems. And oh, Lord, would you take over? Would you take over? You know, and then a big voice says, scoot over, you know, and so you scoot over and you're going down the road and everything's great. You know, and going straight as an arrow, and you go, hey, this is a breeze, this is a straight road, why don't you let me drive for a while? Thank you. I mean, why do we do this? Why do we do this? I mean, the ultimate control is not up to you. I heard a good way of explaining it. I wish I could remember where it came from, but it's like you are a handful of water out of the ocean. That handful of water out of the ocean is basically nothing. It's basically powerless. It's not even enough really to use. But as part of the ocean, look at that power. If you just figure which way the currents are going and get to be a part of that current, the power that you have. I mean, that power is torn down Malibu and removed beaches and everything else. And that's the way it is in life. Realize that you're not in control. And it's difficult sometimes. One of the things to do is remember to be thankful, especially as bad as things are. The more you got to be thankful for what you have. The more you're thankful about, the more you get. Now you say, well, I'm not thankful about anything. Then you have something you're being not thankful for right there. I mean, you're really being thankful for your misery, and you're just liable to load yourself up with misery. So it's a process here. It's a process. You're not in control. Realize where that control is. Sometimes, and you've heard this expression before, and it's funny, I remember one time when I was going to Unity up in Overland Park. I lived in Kansas City for many years. Used to go out to Lee Summit out there. But Pete Ray had a church, and I liked Pete. We were friends, and I went in to see him. And it was just the same thing I've heard over and over and over again. But boy, I felt like, you know, the world was on my shoulders. This is after the $6 million, you know, that they took away and sold for $8 because of this, that, and the other thing. Long story. Don't get me started. And I was sitting there in church thinking, wow, you know, I haven't finished evolving, but I probably wasn't even on my first loop at this point in time. And I thought, what should I do? And I hear Pete say, sometimes you have to let go and let God. And I don't know why, that particular time, the student was quite willing and the teacher appeared. And it was just like two big hands, a lot bigger than these, grabbed all that weight and came off my shoulder. It's amazing how the solution started coming, how the way to turn things around happened. But I had to let go. I had to let go because I was wrestling this thing. And see, it's a problem, you know, and especially like David, big guys like you. David teaches personal safety. I mean, David's got all the belts in karate. He's got more belts than I have in my closet. And I've gone down 5 sizes now. So I got a lot of belts, okay? And big guys sometimes, you're used to being in control of situations and so on and so forth. But David's told me, he's learned. He says, I know where the power is. I got to let go. I'm not in power. I may be in power for a moment or on this earth for a second, but I got to let go. And that's what you need to know, is know when you're not in control. And that fits with the next one. The next concept is to know when to ask for help. Know when to ask for help. And I don't know where you're at on this one. And this is kind of my therapy here, okay? But for me, it's real tough still to ask for help. Hardly ever do I ask for help, but I've learned. When I had that all of a sudden shotgun wedding, the shotgun operation, 7 days later I'm sitting there getting shots to put me asleep. I said, this is what you do to dogs? Yeah, sure, I'm going to wake up. I asked for a lot of help. And I talked to people who are friends of mine, and I said, I need some help. And people showed up, and I got stacks and stacks of letters. I called three or four people, and I said, look, if you know anybody who knows me, I would like to have some prayers. I figured, if we could spread this like a chain letter and get 3 or 4 million people praying, that'd be really neat, I called up to the tower, the whole bit, and I got letters like Zig Ziglar, and I barely met Zig, but I'm getting letters from all over the place. I asked for help, and boy, didn't that buoy me up. It really did. And you've got to learn to ask for help. Now, an interesting thing happened to Jack. Jack was tall. He's about 6'2", 6'3", slender. Always stood very regal and very in control sort of guy. And he had a terrible back problem. And he told me the story that he was going to make a speech somewhere at some other church. And he really was having trouble getting out of the taxi and getting the bags and all that kind of stuff. And this elderly porter came over and said, sir, can I get you a wheelchair? He was having a hard time walking. And the guy said to Jack, can I get you a wheelchair? Can I help you out? And Jack says, no, I'm okay. That first, macho guy, yeah, I'm sure you've done it too, macho guy sort of, or macho gal, You know, oh no, I can make this on my own. And he said, no, he says, you're having a little problem with your bag, and I can get you a wheelchair. And we get wheelchairs for all kinds of people. Just bring you on in there. Jack says, no, no, no. And the guy disappeared for a while. The guy came back with a wheelchair and brought it up behind Jack. And he hit Jack with a dirty, low blow. He said, would you please give me the personal joy of helping you? Now, you say that to a minister, what are they going to do? I mean, what a low blow. But that was the perfect thing to say, because all of a sudden, I've got what I call a reframe on this. All of a sudden, I realize that when I ask people to help me, I'm giving them a chance to feel good about themselves. Have you ever thought of that one before? I mean, and it's so hard for me to ask for help, but once I've got that in my mind, I'm slowly inching forward in that one. Now, there's another interesting corollary here, which is to know when you've been helped. Now, there's a very old joke, and I apologize for old jokes, but I love to tell this one so much, just let me do it, okay? So this guy falls off a cliff, and he grabs hold of a limb, and it's just hardly one little twig there, and he's going, help, 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 and looking above you, oh Lord, help me, Lord, and the deep voice comes. It's always a deep voice, right? And some of the ladies told me, no, it isn't. Sounds just like mine. But a deep voice came and said, let go of the branch. And he said, help, help, somebody up there, help me, oh Lord, help me, help me. Let go of the branch. Is there anybody else up there? Sometimes we've been told what we need to do. Sometimes we've been told where our salvation is, and we don't pay attention. Sometimes we've been helped and we ignore it. Number 6, forgive others. Forgive others. I had a guy firebomb my house once. I've had an interesting life. At the time, I was building some apartment complexes, and the contractor that didn't get the bid was kind of upset, I guess. That's best I can figure. And he firebombed my house. It was a small firebomb, and I was, 3 palms on my eagle in Boy Scouts, My next door neighbor was one of my old scout friends, We got it out in a short period of time. And I've never had much trouble with forgiveness. I forgave him. And the most marvelous thing happened? I ran into him 4 years later, and he still hated me. I thought, wow, this is neat. I forgave him right after it happened, and I totally forgot it, and he's eating himself alive hating me. Woo, this is really good. And I discovered forgiveness is for me, it's not for him. Heard Chris tell a story. Chris Chenoweth, this weekend up at Unity and Lee's Summit that I thought was so good. I'll share it in a capsulized version. A true story. Got it from a book. And a priest in the Northeast got a call in California. Got a call in the middle of the night. It was like 11 o'clock, something like that. And they said, could you please come and give last rites? The man's dying at the hospital. And he said, well, I'll try my best to make it. I don't know whether I can. And we don't even have electricity here. It was in the middle of one of the worst storms they'd ever had. Trees were knocked down, all the power was out, and everything else. This was 30 miles away. And he lived in a town that ran along the side. There was a road that ran along the creek and crossed back and forth with the creek, and the creek was out of its banks. He says, it may take me a couple hours. And it just took him forever to get there. I mean, just thank heaven, every time he got to a bridge, the tree that was down didn't totally block his passage. And he was able to make it across, and finally, 3.5 hours later, made the 30-mile drive, because he had a 20-year-old car, and the lights wouldn't even show through the rain. I mean, he was just almost feeling his way up there. And he gets up there, and the nun brings him in, and he says, I was just happened to be in the neighborhood and heard that you were in here when I talked to the nun. And he says, yeah, don't give me that blankety blank blank. He says, I asked for last rites, that's why you're here, I'm dying. Well, he'd been told about the guy. The guy had become a recluse. He was an alcoholic. His liver was no longer working. They'd had him in for treatment 3 or 4 times. And he lived in some cabin up in the hills. And he wanted to have his last rites. And he said, so he gave him the last rites. And he said, would you like to do your confession? And never been of that discipline, but I understand that's real important, part of the secret to getting the rest of the stuff that you're supposed to get. You got to do that confession. He said, no. I told him, no way. So he said, I just like to talk. They talked for a while, asked him about the confession. 5 times, 2 hours later, he keeps asking him, he's a priest, this is his job, would you like to do your confession? And finally, it wore him down enough, the guy says, well, what I have to confess is so terrible. I never told a single human being, but I guess I'll tell you because I'll never know who else knows. Because he said, I've worked for the railroad all my life. When I was a young guy, I've always drank a lot. Well, it was in the holidays, and we were out drinking in the yard. It was a midnight shift, and I was supposed to go throw a switch. When I threw the switch, I didn't throw it right, and a freight train plowed in to a passenger car, and a man and a woman and their 2 children died, and it was my responsibility. And he says that was 38 days, 6 months, 2 weeks, and 11 hours ago. It's been on his mind all the time. And the priest said, well, if I can forgive you, God can forgive you, and I forgive you. So does God. That was my family you killed. You talk about serendipity, being in the right place at the right time. Now, who is that really for? Yes, it was for the man. Well, what did that do for the priest? Kind of brought everything full circle, didn't it? Look at the release. Look at the release. Forgive others. Now, one thing I've had some people, because I sometimes go on and on when I'm talking to people about forgiveness, especially when somebody gives me a real bad story, and I tell them this is real important. I had somebody come to me and said, I was abused as a child. How can I possibly ever forgive them? And I had to ask my friend that we have a mastermind group, Bill Curley, about this one. And he said, well, next time tell them that they shouldn't take it personally. And I said, I couldn't tell them that. They shouldn't take it personally. What do you mean? They got abused as a child? They shouldn't take it personally? He says, yeah, because that's the truth. And I said, how do you explain that? He said, because it wasn't because of them. Whoever that person would have had as a child probably would have been abused. They're taking it personally. It had nothing to do with them. It had to do with the abuser. Ooh, that was a totally different viewpoint. So forgive them. It's for you. It's for you. It's not for them. It's for you. Forgiveness, and it's up to you. And then you've got to forgive yourself. That's part of this process. You got to forgive yourself. And I'll give you one story that'll help get this point across. When I was a kid and I started my undergraduate degree, I wanted to be a disc jockey, and I wanted to be a disc jockey in the worst way. And I was sure at that age, is one of the finest things you could do at that age. And I went down to the station. They said, no, we got lots of people who are disc jockeys wanting to be disc jockeys, and we don't need any disc jockeys. So I knew what to do. I hung around. I mean, I hung around all the time, and I helped out, and I stacked records, and I filled logs, and I did it for a couple of months. I figured that way, if there was any kind of a slot, I might get it. And so, sure enough, he said, the manager, the station manager I was working for, said, you're on tonight, midnight to 6 in the morning. I said, great. I said, you know, I've never had a chance to work the controls. He said, well, you've been watching me. It's pretty, you know what to do, don't you? I said, well, yeah, sure. I mean, I didn't want to say no. Besides that, you know, when you're 18 and a half, 19 years old, you're sure you know everything anyway. So, you know, it's probably the height of knowledge. And so I went into the station. He says, and by that, the guy before you will show you what to do. Just ask him. Well, I got to the station. Turns out the guy before me hated me. I didn't know it. I didn't even know the guy. Still today don't know who he was or why he hated me, but he hated me. But anyway, he just, when I walked in, he said, I put a long playing record on, I'm gone, and he left. And this looked like what it would take to launch a Nike missile. I mean, the night guy not only played the records, but he also had to keep the station on the air. So, I mean, they had all these electronic things and huge dials and all this other kind of stuff. And I'm looking at all this, and I listened to the first record, and it was great. And you know, I said, this is KFRU 1400 on your radio dial. And this is Bernard Zick, your announcer for this evening. I even had a radio voice and all that good stuff. And so I play the first record, and I can't cue up the second record, and I can't figure out what's wrong. About that time, a friend of mine comes into the station, a guy I'd known forever, and he was going to the same college. And I started really getting upset. I mean, I was so nervous anyway, and I started using the vocabulary that had been carrying me through my previous job, which was working in a filling station. Now, I'm not going to give you the words that I was using, but they were rather robust words, that some of which are not even used on cable TV nowadays, and except for the way, way, way late night shows, you know. And then the phone rings, and I pick up the phone, and it's one of the salesmen for the station. He says, did you know there's a microphone on somewhere in the studio, and your voice is going out to the entire city, and everybody can hear what you're saying? I said, no, I didn't. He said, well, look for a red light. And I saw it behind the stacks, and I flipped off the switch, queued up the records, you know, and went to the next record, queued it up. Next record, queued it up. Phone rang again. It's the same guy. He says, sometime you're going to have to say something. I mean, when this happened, my head had swollen up like a pumpkin in a microwave. I mean, my blood was boiling. I was sick at my stomach. And I flipped the cue card over to where it said, I said, your radio announcer. I mean, I wasn't even going to give my name. I left that station, never came back. For 3 years, I'd wake up once a month in cold sweats, soaked all the way through to the mattress. Never told my wife what my problem was. She thought I was crazy. It was like malaria or something. And I wake up screaming that obscenity, you know. And that's how bad it was. And so I went to a game. I was doing, you know, I was 26 years old, managing $26 million of other people's money. I mean, I had one of the Vanderbilts, I had Al Bloomingdale's money, along Bloomingdale's, you know. I mean, the senior partner had the account, but I did all the work on it. So you'd think I was major success and feeling good about myself. Not when I went down to see that game, because I was in the grocery store getting some stuff, and this guy comes along and he starts going. And I recognized him. He was that station manager. You know how people snap their finger and point at you and wink one eye, like, I know you, you know, that sort of deal. And I tried to look like a potato chip, which my size is kind of tough. You know, I mean, I was trying to blend in or anything. He says, "Your name is Bernie Brett." I says, "No, it's Barney or Bernard, but it's not Bernie." Irish version. And he says, "Yeah." He says, "You really messed our station up." Oh, I said, "Yeah, I know." God, my face got red again. It was just like that night all over again. I said, "Oh, I'm so sorry. I said that cuss word on the air." He said, "You said a cuss word on the air?" He says, "Yeah, I know what you're talking about." He says, "No." He says, "We had a paycheck for you and you never picked it up, and it was never issued, and we can never figure out why our books didn't balance. I mean, for 4 years it was driving us nuts, and we just figured it out last month. But, you know," I said, "What about the cuss word?" He says, "Hey, everybody, do the FCC call us?" "No, we all do it now and then. If they didn't catch you, that's okay." "Well, good seeing you. Enjoy the game." All the blood drained out of my body. I mean, I couldn't believe it. All of a sudden I realized he didn't know and he didn't care. Now, what is that one thing that you can't forgive yourself for? That one most terrible, embarrassing thing that you've done that you can't ever seem to release? That you're driving down the road and all of a sudden you go, "Oh, God, I can't believe I did that." Let it go. If you call the person, you know what, the only thing they would be concerned about if you called them, they'd be concerned about whether or not you remember the most embarrassing thing they ever did. So forgive yourself. No one even remembers. Now, let's get to some action steps. I think you've seen the answers to those questions. I'm going to go through these very quickly. Now, don't get upset that there's no way you can write them down, because I went ahead and typed them up and have them at the back of the room, because I figured I'd be running a little late on time now. So I wrote them down for you. So let's just go through them real quick. Okay. And I'm a big believer in taking action. I think there's magic in it. I think the universe, if you take the first step, the universe will give you back a couple of steps for free. It's like passing go and collecting $200. Action steps. Your day is dictated by each decision. Each daily decision makes up your attitude. Your daily attitude will dictate your life's success. Guard carefully your moment-to-moment decisions. Number 2, your daily attitude will dictate your life. If you want to change your life, change what's happening in your life today. Number 3, blaming others is an excuse. You are 100% responsible for you. You know, when somebody says, "Oh, it's their fault," and then they're telling me they have yet to take responsibility for their life. Love them or leave them, but don't just sit around blaming them. It's not what happens that counts. It's how you let what happens affect you that counts. Everything happens for the best. It's not your job to discover the good. It is your job, to discover the good in everything that happens. Things will go wrong. Things will go wrong. Be happy for what is right. Acknowledge and trust life's higher power. And then cool off. Give it a space and time if that's what you need. And then look for what's the lesson in there. Why is this a gem for me? What is there to learn? And don't wait for change. Take action. If you change, I discovered a secret. Now, psychologists tell us, and researchers tell us, if you want to make a change, like for instance in your spouse, there are very different ways to get a change in somebody. You have them go through 7 years of psychoanalysis, fall madly in love, a major religious experience, or a near-death experience. Now, which one of those would you prefer for your spouse? We won't take a poll here, but anyway. Well, I have discovered how I can change all my relationships with everybody. You know how? I change. If I change, see, things don't change, people do. Jim Rohn said it. It's cold every winter, hot every summer. Things don't change, people do. You want to make a change in somebody else. If you make a change, they have to change. They no longer have the old you to react with. Well, we could do an hour on that one, couldn't we? Take action. There's magic in it. I believe in serendipity, but you only get serendipity going when you get going. Let me give you a quiz. 5 frogs are sitting on a log, 3 decided to jump. How many were left? 5, that's right. Deciding to do something and taking action is 2 different things. How many of you decided to take action? Forgiveness is not for them. It's for you. Write a forgiveness list. Now, the first step in winning the inner game is to give yourself permission to succeed. Give yourself permission to succeed. I've said this over and over. I close all my talks with this because I believe in it so much. You see, you have 10 times more intelligence, 10 times more ability, 10 times more energy than what you're tapping into. A good story that proves this is a guy named Carbo, and he wrote a book called The Lazy Man's Way to Riches. And he had made $100,000 a year doing the things he wrote about in the book. And this is in the 1950s, like $1 million today. I mean, he had a house in Balboa Island, one up in Lake Tahoe, and a seaplane to fly in between. And he ran the ad. You can make an extra $100,000 a year with The Lazy Man's Way to Riches. And nobody bought the book. Being a believer in what he teaches, which is what we teach in marketing, that the headline is 90% of the draw, and test, change words to see what works. You can make $50,000 a year with The Lazy Man's Way to Riches, sold a few books. Finally got it down in the 1950s to $2,000 to $3,000 right in that area. You can make $2,000 to $3,000 per year with The Lazy Man's Way to Riches. Sold 3.3 million copies of the book at $10. Now, 100% money back guarantee, and he refunded a third of it. It wasn't that good a book. Okay? But he made 2.2 million bucks. Pretty good, huh? Now, why did people not buy that book? I mean, he was telling about what he's doing. Why would they not buy that book when he promised them they'd make 100,000? He was making 100,000. But they would buy it at $2,000 to $3,000 per year. Why? They didn't believe they could do it. You have to give yourself permission to succeed. Get up every morning, look in the mirror and say, I hereby give myself permission to succeed. Let's practice it. 1, 2, 3. I hereby give myself permission to succeed. You do not need it from an outside source. But just in case you think you do, I'll take care of that. I hereby give you all permission to succeed. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Thank you.